afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul, and I am a nerd, and you are here for the July 2018 PracticeMaster Virtual User Group Meeting, where today it is all about version 19. Version 19 has been on the operating table, I guess, for about 2 or 3 months now in a pre-release state where a lot of activity has taken place, a lot of great suggestions from the people that are helping to test it, and it is ready to roll. It will start shipping to new sales tomorrow. So we're going to take a quick dive through what's going on there and be able to launch right in next month with an even deeper dive into the navigation and look and feel changes. Today we're going to just quickly run through everything that's changing in PracticeMaster with version 19. And so, without any further ado, I am going to press all the magic buttons that I need to press in order to get me to a place where we can show you PracticeMaster version 19. Now, the very first thing you're going to notice is, oh my gosh, look at that icon there. It doesn't look like something out of the 80s, like this Dropbox icon that hasn't changed yet, but I think is changing. And you'll notice when I double click, ooh, look at that splash screen. It actually looks like something from this decade. And you'll find as you get into the program that the entire look and feel has taken a big step forward. The icons are now scalable, meaning that they get bigger and smaller depending on the size of your screen. The font is larger and will also in certain instances scale. We have things over here of your pinned actions. You can take as many things as you want and put them over here. You can see the things you've done most recently. You can see your most recent matters. You can even search for something instead of trying to figure out, if anybody's ever watched me try to figure out where something is in the menus. It's quite an amusing sight because I always will look at least 3 menus before I get to the one that I need to. Now you can just type as much as you can remember of what it is you're looking for. We also have this My Actions area. We have the All Actions area that kind of pulls everything together if you still like the graphical. And we have this dashboard thing over here. Look at that. So that's our dashboard. This is All Actions and My Actions. This is the new Quick Launch area. Not going to go into a lot of detail on the Quick Launch, the My Actions, the All Actions, simply because they are going to be covered in great detail next time. But I will let Mary Jo talk about this dashboard.
All right, so on your dashboard, you can see all of your recent events, your most current events coming up, and it'll even, if you had more, this is test data, so there isn't any, but you'd be able to see all your events coming up for those next few days. You can open the calendar from here or add an event. You can add tasks, and you can see your task list over on the left. And then you also can see what's going on with your billable, non-billable time for a week, a day, a month, and even add fees right from this main screen. So you don't have to go out and do some different things there. You can just do it all right here. So that dashboard is, I think, Paul and I, is one of our favorite things that we've had so far. One other thing I want to show you when you come in here, so you know, this is a big change, and I know that there's some people at the firm that this just is going to be way too overwhelming, and you know already in your head who those people are, and they're going to look at this and say, whoa, not for me. Now, if that's the case, you are able to go into the view, go to your theme settings, and you can set it back to the classic view. So they will see those task folders and the old things that they had before. I don't know that I recommend that. It's really a firm decision. I really like the new look and feel, and even Paul and I both have marveled at the fact that firms that we thought would just be really thrown into chaos because of change have embraced this and really enjoyed this new view.
Or specific people.
Specific people. So
I walked into somebody's office and the first thing she said was, I love this new view. And I turned around and walked out and checked the nameplate and walked back in. And it was the person I thought it was. And they actually liked it. And I've just seen that over and over and over again. People that we didn't think would like it.
Some firms have even just said, forget it. We're ripping off the Band-Aid. Everybody's just going to do it. We're just going to jump into this century and we're going to do it. So anyway, that is some options options that you have out there for that new view. And again, we will go into this in way more detail to go into each one of these different functions and settings and all of that. But it does look very clean. It's easy to read. The font sizes are bigger. They're easy. I really enjoyed this a lot.
And I'm scrambling here to get to where we are. Okay, the next thing on our list is there have been some changes to the Outlook plugin. I'm just going to describe them. We're not even going to go look because it's a new button and a change to the behavior on the old button. Have you ever marked multiple emails that you wanted to put into PracticeMaster and hit the PM Journal button to find that it stops and asks which client for each email, even though you marked multiple? And you're thinking, oh, great, it's going to do it. I marked multiple, it's going, but then it just keeps asking which client for this email, which client for that email. That is been, well, not eliminated. You can still do that if you want to do that. But now we have the option to batch journalize emails all at once. So if you have 18 emails that all go to Michael Larson versus Belcore Matter, you can mark them all, move them all in. Another thing that's been added, and this was one of those, we have to jump through hoops to do this, but it was the only way to do it before. There is now a button to attach a PM document to an email. So you can start an email, hit the attach PM document, find the document that you want to attach, click it, and it's in there. You don't need to go into PracticeMaster, save it out somewhere where it can be attached, then attach it to that email. It just happens right then and there. No more fiddling around trying to make that happen.
Paul, do you want to do the fields since you just talked about those?
I did just talk about the fields.
I'll let you go ahead and take that.
Today we recorded Paul and Mary Jo shows, and this was my topic. So you have fields in PracticeMaster that you can add by yourself, or maybe some that were already there. And that's a very, very powerful feature of PracticeMaster, is the customizability, the ability to change the file structure, to even add new files altogether. But sometimes those fields contain information that if you change them, you could be in trouble. And so you don't really want certain people to have access to those fields, but up until now, they did. But now there's something called restricted fields, and you define through access profiles who can change the fields that are restricted in a certain file versus who can't. And so if you have a field like statute of limitations date, or I have one client that stores receipt allocation percentages in PracticeMaster on the main screen, they don't want people going in and messing with those. And they're not even worried about people doing it maliciously. They're simply worried about people messing it up. Now those are restricted, so only the right people can change them.
And along those lines with adding fields, that has increased from 435 fields to now you can do 450, which is nice. So we can have 450 customizable fields in each database. So that's cool. I'm
going to take the next one because we were intimately involved in the development of this. Has Word changed and has computers changed? Some of the more complex templates that were out there, we're starting to have problems, get errors because of something that was happening in Windows. A lot of changes have been made to the underlying document assembly process, for those of you that are taking coded templates and assembling documents on the fly for matters. And those are changes that we drove. At first, the people at STI said we simply had to stop writing such complex templates. They were joking, of course, but that's what was happening. Some of our templates were so complex that they were causing trouble. And so some people at STI totally rewrote that Word document assembly routine. And so one of the changes, one of the ways that exhibits itself, is it no longer asks you when you assemble a document if you want to show assembly. That always displays, and it always displays in a mode now that's not going to create the problems that it was creating before. And I'll just jump onto the next one because it's so small. The T code that you used last when adding a fee and cost entry is now what will be the default the next time you go in there. If you add fees or costs in PracticeMaster, and frankly the same is true in tabs, it's also changed this way, and you were using code 11, and then it would default to code 11 again and again and again, and then you go out of the program and go back in, Now it defaults to whatever your lowest numbered transaction code is until you change it to code 11. Now it simply defaults to the thing you used last, whether you've exited the fee entry or the cost entry routine and come back in, or you're still there. It's always going to use the code that you used last.
That's also somewhat true when you're opening up a file. So if you go into all other files, go into file maintenance, import data, workflows, Word doc assembly file, Windows, it's always going to display that last file that was accessed, and it will be saved as the default instead of having to go click it every time. The next thing is the timer. Launching a timer window when a timer window is open already will now display the current timer window. So to open any additional timer windows, you would just press the control key, and then that would let you open multiples. So instead of having it open multiples automatically, you actually have to hit control now to do that.
Because that's not what people really intend
exactly.
to do.
You end up hitting that timer, and then you hit it again, and you end up with 3 timer windows running, and it's all the same window, but there's 3 of them open. So now that will be eliminated.
Now we happen to still be on the dashboard, and we are seeing the next topic, which is the recap of hours. That recap of hours that you're seeing here on the dashboard is also available as a separate option. It's much more graphical. It allows you to see things in a nice linear, spatial sort of relationship to other days, so that you can see at a glance same functionality you had before, plus some. I mean, you can still drill down and edit. You have an add fee button right here on the screen. You have the ability to look at a day, a month, a week, whatever is appropriate to you. And we have nice, clear designations color-wise between billable and non-billable time. Now, for those of you that like that old-fashioned, it was not graphical, although it kind of displayed in a month sort of grid, that's still there. That's called the Recap of Hours report. And that's still there as the Recap of Hours report, but then the new Recap of Hours is simply called Recap of Hours. And so that's available there. I think, Mary Jo, I'm going to jump ahead and simply say this is also now in TabsFree Connect. So for those users that come into PracticeMaster and say, wow, this is awesome, look at this, they'll be even more surprised when they go into TabsFree Connect and see the exact same graphical recap of hours there.
And it will default to the person, the timekeeper that you want. So on mine, it's defaulted to me. On Paul's, it's defaulted to him. And so that's another little thing in there.
Exactly.
So in Form Designer, because of these new fonts, some of the layouts might be a little wonky. So they've put in a way that you can revert back to an earlier font if you want to. I think that kind of defeats the purpose, but there are some ways that then you can go ahead and customize in Form Designer to rearrange those fields so that then they will go ahead and fit on the screen and not have to scroll.
But then another side effect of that is that you now have complete control over what font and what size is used in the labels and the text that shows up on those forms.
Right.
So you can design forms that are specifically using a font and size that you feel is appropriate to the size screens that you have.
And then just some overall, so those are the changes in PracticeMaster that we're going to cover, but then there's just some global changes for all of the programs. So the first one is that you can now open the current working directory just by clicking on Open Current Working Directory button. So if we go under Help, there's a, hold on, let me get there, About PracticeMaster. There's an Open CWD button down here. So you can go into the current working directory and get right in there to do that. Now it's a back office thing, and all users are going to do that, but that is a way that you can get in there.
And then I think the only other one that really affects, well, maybe the 145 error, the second to last change in PracticeMaster is that the data has now been segregated into its own folder. Now, for people that use Platinum, what that means is, since the Platinum server is what accesses that data, you can actually go in and apply security to the data folder, meaning that users can't get in there. Now, you'd be right to think, well, if they can't get in there, they can't run the program. But in Platinum, the users aren't the ones that are accessing that data folder. It's the Platinum server that's accessing that folder and then feeding up those results to the users, kind of like a mama Robin brings worms back to the nest. The Platinum server brings data to the users. Mary Jo's rolling her eyes for those of you at home who can't see her. And so it's something that's in the background, but from a security standpoint, it's significant.
And then finally, for the system requirements for version 19, you do need to have Windows 7 SP1 or later, and Windows Server 2008 R2 or later. Any firms that have Windows 7 or the Windows Server 2008 R2, there may be a little Windows patch that needs to be in there. And I was telling Paul last one, it's not a critical update. It's one of the little minor updates that happen in Windows, so it's not going to affect all these big things. It's just one of those things that we need, that is required to operate version 19. And I did have a firm that we put that in. It was very easy. It didn't shut down everything or do these major changes to Windows. It was a little minor little update.
Right.
It's scary, those window updates nowadays.
They are.
Yeah.
And so next month, we are going to talk about the new look, feel, and navigation of PracticeMaster. So we're going to take a very deep dive into this quick launch pane over here, these tabs that you may or may not have noticed as to how the programs open up here, this My Activities, My Actions area here, and the All Actions, and how that fits in with the dashboard on the home screen. So that's going to be, we're going to take a very deep dive into that, because how things flow and how you navigate is a big part of version 19. How they look, how they feel, and how you get around is a huge part of version 19. Now the next question that people will have is, how do I get this? Well, very soon after it's been released to new sales, and that's tomorrow, it'll start to roll to people who are on maintenance. We do release it, or I should say they, I pretend like we're them. The people at Tabs-Free PracticeMaster do release it to new sales first. Sometimes it's only for a couple of days, sometimes it's for a week or two. It depends really on how it goes. So that any of those things that didn't come out in beta will come out with these new sales, and then they start to release it to the people that are on maintenance. Now they'll start that with a group of 500 firms. And then after a few days or perhaps a week, another 500. At some point, they will ramp that up and start releasing them in groups of 1,000, maybe even 1,500 or 2,000. And of course, that's in direct proportion to the amount of drain that they're being put on their that they're putting on their support team, so that we don't have a situation where support is overwhelmed and unable to respond to people in a timely fashion. That's the last thing they want at STI or Tabs-Free PracticeMaster, because they pride themselves in the quality of that support. Now, if you need it, want it, absolutely must have it before then, all you have to really do is email me. It's paul.purdue@attorneycomputersystems.com. Notice, of course, the emphasis on the last S in the word systems, and notice that Purdue is spelled like the university, not the chicken. Therefore, it's P-U-R-D-U-E. So paul.purdue@attorneycomputersystems.com. Just say, we want it now. That's all you really need to say. And I will do everything I can to get it to you as quickly as possible. Now, Patty, I believe, has one question that she said we would wait till the end for. Patty?
And actually another one popped up, so I'm going to ask two questions, Paul. When you were talking about data segregation, does that also apply to client documents?
No. The documents are not in that folder, because they do need to be accessed by the individual users. However, you do, in the configuration of document management in PracticeMaster, have the ability to say where those documents go. So if you're not happy with where they are now, it is possible to move them. Of course, it's much easier to have started with them in the right location, but it's possible to move them. So you do have control over where they go by simply going into customization and accessing the setup for document management.
Okay, and then the last question, is version 19 a mandatory update? And if so, is there a deadline?
Oh, no, there's never any mandatory updates from STI. They do sometimes release critical updates if they find a problem with the software, but they even do that with prior versions. So if they find a problem and they say, oh, this is a problem, and it was also a problem in version 18, they'll release an update to version 18. So no, it's not mandatory, and really they never are. It's always up to you whether or not you install them. So no, it will eventually, maybe what we're asking is, when will the version that I'm on go away? And I don't really know that. I know that version 16 went away, a month or so ago. It was sunsetted is the word that we use for it. And so sometime, at some point, version 17 will be sunsetted. That doesn't mean you can't use it anymore. It just means that they're not providing support for it. And so there's other reasons to get off of a version when it's sunsetted. But no, not mandatory. You can stay on version 18 or whatever version you're on right now. And as long as that continues to work with the hardware and software that you're running, the operating system, then you're fine. Any more come in since then, Patty? I'm going to take that.
Actually, yes. Sorry. I had to scramble to find it. Susie is asking, can the total amount in the hours worked be removed from the dashboard? And can the user whose hours are displayed be changed easily with the gear icon?
Mary Jo's whispering to me.
I'm muted. There you go. So the dashboard can be changed a little bit. You can change the worked hours for different people. But the dashboard, I do think you can configure it somewhat, but we'll get into more of that when we actually dig into a deep dive.
And that question, I believe, has come up, and I think somebody else wanted that, and therefore I think it was something that was may have gotten in there. As we take a deep dive into the dashboard, we'll cover that. And if Patty, if you'll let me know who that was, then I will do a little research and get the question answered specifically for them. The short answer is I don't know. The longer answer is I think they may have made that configurable because I think other people may have asked that. And I think it may have been something that came out in the pre-release testing. Okay, so of course we all know it won't be a virtual user group meeting without my taking you to attorneycomputersystems.com, and you will of course notice my emphasis on that last S in the word systems, because without it you won't get there. If you click on the word videos up in the menu, you will be taken to a page that has a very brief description but list of all 6 of our video titles. Of course, you are in our PracticeMaster virtual user group meeting right now. We also have a virtual user group meeting for tabs and one for World Docs. The other live event that we produce is called our Coffee Pot webinar series, where I bring someone from another company into a webinar to describe their product that they have that adds value to Tabs 3 or PracticeMaster or World Docs. So those are always very interesting and informative and expose you to all sorts of neat stuff that you can do kind of outside of the box. We also have 2 pre-recorded titles. We have our eBytes video series. Mary Jo records 3 of these each month, one on Tabs, one on PracticeMaster, one on World Docs. They are short 2 or 3 minute videos that take something very cool that we think everybody should know and that we are confident that we can explain concisely and in 2 or 3 minutes. I guess that's the same thing. And then we also have our Paul and Mary Jo show for those topics that can't be explained quite so concisely. So we'll take a topic, and we record 1 of these each month, and go into greater detail, 10, 15, sometimes 20 minutes or more, taking a deep dive into the broad spectrum of whatever the topic at hand is. So they are available. These videos are available on our website 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So please take advantage of them. They are there for your enjoyment, entertainment, and education. So everybody have a good rest of the day, good rest of the month, and we will see you next month. Thanks much. Bye-bye.